If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire.
And Maxwell Powers. And Johnny Mills.
And this is the Maura Murray series, episode 26, Ohio. And we will be discussing why law enforcement thought that Maura was headed to Ohio. Now, we briefly mentioned this, I'm sure Maxwell remembers, on one of the earlier episodes that police actually thought she was on her way to Ohio, or she might be heading to Ohio, and were looking for her in Ohio. Do you remember, Maxwell?
No.
Johnny?
And I didn't know that.
I didn't know nothing about Ohio. That's the wrong direction, right?
Somewhat, yeah. That's west instead of north. So, once again, if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit the like button. Any questions or comments, suggestions, feel free to leave comments. Feel free to share the video on whatever social platforms you use. Also, make sure to like our Facebook page, Patreon, Reddit, and Twitter. Okay, so like I said, we briefly touched on this in an earlier episode, but it definitely warrants a full examination, as it seems that law enforcement was very adamant about Maura going to Ohio. And there are a few other curiosities surrounding connections between Maura, Billy, other people, and the state of Ohio. So I'm going to read an article from February 21st, 2004. So this is only a couple weeks after Maura went missing. This is from the Caledonian Record. Sharon Rausch and her husband, Bill Sr., have been helping Fred Murray search for his daughter since February 11th. And we're actually going to be getting into Bill Sr. in this episode as well after we go over more of Ohio. Now, Bill Sr. is a very curious individual. He's very rarely ever mentioned, and other than these couple of articles, a lot of people might not even know, he actually showed up with Sharon Rausch to help look for Maura. So they met their son there. So it's Bill, Sharon, and Bill Sr., so they're all in New Hampshire searching. I don't know why it doesn't get talked about. I mean, Sharon's done interviews. As far as I know, Bill Sr. has not done an interview ever. And there are some allegations of strange political connections of Bill Sr. as well. So, back to the article. So has the Rausch's son, Billy, who is Murray's fiancé-to-be, and a second lieutenant with C Battery 119th Field Artillery at Fort Sill, Lawton, Oklahoma. They have been going nonstop in their search for Murray, including walking trails and roads, distributing flyers, and knocking on doors in the area of the accident. Family members and friends are at times upset about the lack of information or difference in information obtained by police investigators and what they have been able to glean from knocking on doors and asking questions. So this is an article from only a couple weeks after her disappearance, already referencing that police are giving different information than the people in the area. Why is there so much confusion over the events that occurred? It's something being covered up, Maxwell.
Maybe.
Johnny? If you haven't checked out our Maxwell and I's recent podcast, Police Conspiracies, on police conspiracies in general, but we also specifically mentioned the Maura Murray and Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery cases on police complicity in nefarious conspiracies and cover-ups, and also conspiracies and cover-ups that aren't nefarious but are actually benevolent and in the interest of the public. But back to the article. Last week, they were told by investigators it was believed Murray had headed toward the Rausch's home in Marengo, Ohio, because she was having family trouble. You don't remember this?
Nope.
So, just quick reference. Marengo is the red dot, and the yellow dot is where the accident was, all the way in New Hampshire. So, pretty far.
So how is she going to Ohio?
We will discuss the anomalies, and if she's heading to Ohio, which is southwest from UMass.
What is it, like a portal or something? Like she ended up?
Well, we will get into it. So, Sharon Rausch said although she didn't believe that, she had one of her children who had stayed behind put notes on the door for Murray and left the home unlocked. However, Murray has not turned up in Ohio. nor have signs of her surfaced in Vermont. And the only hint of a sign of her in New Hampshire was February 11th, when a canine tracked her scent from her car to about 100 yards east of the accident site in the area of the Butch Atwood residence. Quick annotation needed there. We don't know whether it tracked her scent or not. The gloves they used for the scent were leather gloves. Maura did not like leather. She may have never worn the leather gloves. And then according to the possessed property report, which a certain amount of people pretend doesn't exist and pretend it does not list, 2 pairs of black gloves. There's another pair. Some conspiracy theorists allege that other pair is from a police officer who left his own gloves in her car for whatever reason. But they do appear to be law enforcement, government-issued type leather gloves that officers do wear. Once again, doesn't mean it was an officer. Once again, doesn't mean it wasn't Maura's, but it doesn't mean it was either. So the dog did not necessarily track Maura's scent. The dog tracked a scent, and the handler themselves and experts have stated that it was not considered a successful track.
So the gloves were found in the car?
Yes, there were 4 black gloves found in the car and a 5th multicolored glove by itself.
Okay.
We don't know the age of anything. There were gloves that were gifted to her from the Rausches, but she may never have worn them. So whoever touched the gloves, if it wasn't even Maura who drove the car up, someone else drove it up, touched the gloves or whatever, or whoever did something to her may have left the gloves in there, or whoever was driving the vehicle may have brought their own gloves, and that could be their gloves. We don't know.
Yeah, whoever was in the car, that's where they tracked it to Butch Atwood's place.
To the to just right up the road. Also, where
that's the bus driver, right?
Yeah. So, and that could have, since it was right on the road, she could have been picked up there as well by a vehicle. But once again, what I was just saying, it's not really considered a successful dog track because it was so many days later and it was really windy that it's not necessarily a reliable dog track. You following, Maxwell?
Wait, why wouldn't it be reliable though?
Because it was so many days later and it was very windy. So the dog,
You
dogs have very.
So you think it was throwing it off or something?
I don't know. It's just considered like they're not going to call it a definitive, super accurate dog track. It may or may not have been accurate.
Because they recently did another dog track, like now. This is like 13 years later.
Oh, that's not a dog track. What do you mean, the remains?
Yeah.
Those were
Cadaver
remains,
dogs. Okay.
remain scent dogs that
Gotcha.
were trained to sniff human remains. Once again, it may not be Maura.
Yeah. There's something down there.
There's something there. Multiple hits by John Smith. Yeah. Or John Smith reported on this. Yes. Supposedly nothing has been done yet. So, yeah. Okay. So, back to the article. Rausch said a dorm mate saw her leave the campus about 4 or 4:30 p.m. February 9th. So that's also, we don't know who told him that. The name has never been released. We also don't know whether Billy talked to this dorm mate himself or if he was relayed this information by either UMass PD or someone else. So once again, we don't know if this is true. She said Maura's father and her son went through Maura's stuff again and found an index card with MapQuest directions for Burlington, Vermont. Once again, we don't know how old those directions are. Rausch said the Saturn was having mechanical problems, possibly only running on 3 cylinders, when Murray set out for Burlington. She said possibly because the car was running poorly, she decided to leave Interstate 91 and pick up Route 302 and head toward the Lincoln area. And Rausch discounts any thoughts Murray would have just walked away from her family, boyfriend, and friends because she loved them too much. She and Fred Murray said Maura wouldn't have picked up insurance forms for her father to fill out if she had not planned to return home. So, do we know why law enforcement thought Maura could have been going to Ohio? So, was there something in the phone records, or how else would they have known? Wait, what is making them think she's going to Ohio? Because they've never really revealed why. Any thoughts?
I don't know. Is there a Londonderry there?
In Ohio?
The Londonderry ping.
Well, as a follow-up to our other episode, the Londonderry ping, some phone experts say that it couldn't have been Londonderry, Vermont, because that specific tower had too weak a signal. That's get conjecture.
But they know that specific one has a low signal?
Yes, because of the rural area and just that it's different cell towers have different strengths depending on mountains around and all that stuff. So some people are suggesting it's less likely that it was New Hampshire versus Vermont. They're saying it was Vermont because that's a stronger cell tower.
Okay.
Doesn't really mean anything, but
So I mean, there is no proof that she was actually in Ohio or trying to go there?
There is a Londonderry in Ohio, Johnny. So we have a Londonderry in in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Ohio.
Maybe the signal was strong enough from Ohio. It picked up.
It was the strongest cell tower in the world.
No, so what's with the Ohio thing? Like, police just thought she was going there? Like,
yes, and they were
like,
kind of adamant.
Was there anything to prove that? Or
Well, that's what I'm at. That's what we're trying to figure out. Maxwell, any thoughts? Why would they think she was going to have? Is it possible someone said something, or the police spoke to someone, possibly even Billy or someone who denied it later, who said that she told them she was going to Ohio or something?
That's kind of far, though, and random as hell.
Well, that's where the Rausches live, and she had been there before for the holidays and other times.
But he wasn't there, right?
No, but that's his parents' home. So on vacations and stuff. Why are you even touching that? Why don't you sit down and do a podcast?
Wait, how do we know? How do we know that they thought this? How do we know that?
I just read the news article stating that the police believed she was going to Ohio. Why don't you sit down and do a podcast?
So the police, the police said to the newspaper or whatever that is.
Multiple people reported that the police were interested.
Gotcha.
In Ohio and a possible location for her to be going. So what I was just saying, is it possible the police spoke to someone who spoke to her? Or once again, we don't have the text messages. What if there were text messages recovered from her phone that are the smoking gun that kind of say she's going to Ohio? So if Haverhill PD are not involved in a conspiracy or cover-up from day one, and a different agency for whatever reason, if it's a CI situation, there's all these different theories out there. For whatever reason, there was a gag order or some kind of stand down to Haverhill. But before that happened, so if that didn't happen day one, if they were actually actively investigating honestly at the beginning, and they did see her text message that suggested to them that she was going to Ohio, that would be a good reason, right? I mean, again, we don't know that she wrote the text, so if it's a text, or if she did speak to someone on the phone and told them.
So what does it mean that if she really, let's say she really did, that's the truth, like she really did want to go to Ohio. So what does that mean?
That means she was heading to Ohio and she may or may not have made it there.
She went the wrong way.
Well, who said she was driving the Saturn? Maybe she was on her way to Ohio. Someone else was dumping her car in New Hampshire. So she was trying to get people to look in New Hampshire while she was in Ohio. We don't know the situation. That's the whole point. We have no clue. All right, let's look at what Sharon Rausch had to say. So Sharon Rausch said that law enforcement told them that Maura could have already been in Kenton, Ohio. I don't know where they got that. So this is getting more specific now. Now they know the town, or they suspect a specific town in Ohio that she could be at. So the family disputed that because there's nothing in Kenton. So if you look at the map, so the Rausch home is about halfway between Kenton and Canton. Kenton is farther west and out of the way. Canton with a C is closer to New Hampshire. And the Rausch home is roughly, I mean, it's closer to Kenton, but it's south of both locations. Southwest of Canton, southeast of Kenton with a K. So for whatever reason, Sharon Rausch has said that law enforcement specifically told them that Maura could have already been in Kenton. That's kind of weird. How did they know that? So, but the Rausch family
But they said that knowing that the Saturn was like crashed.
Yes, this was after the Saturn
Jeez.
crash. So again,
That's
like
really weird.
what I'm postulating here is if Haverhill PD was not involved in any kind of cover-up, gag order, or stand-down at the beginning of the investigation, after the fact, something happened, and then now they're no longer allowed to discuss it or do anything. But for whatever reason, or this could just be all a diversion, and if they are in on some kind of conspiracy, they're just lying to her and telling her that they're in Ohio to get them to look at. I don't know, but
That's
to
really
me, just
strange.
right off the bat, it seems to me that I don't know if they would be going through all that trouble to divert the family to Ohio if they really didn't think that. Maybe they were. I don't know. But so they got some information from somewhere. Whether the information was good or not, we have no clue. So the Rausch family disputed that, saying, did they mean Canton with a C? And this is what Sharon had to say. The officer then became hostile, arguing that there was no such place as Canton with a C. But there actually is. She did not name the officer here, so we do not know who the officer is. But apparently, and it doesn't say whether it was state police or Haverhill, we don't know. They're becoming hostile when she's disputing that it's Kenton. I don't know. That's kind of weird. This is what Sharon said. So once again, we don't know. But the family did take this seriously, and they left instructions for Maura to get into their own house. Okay, so all right. Are we ready to get even stranger? Are you ready for Mindshock, Maxwell?
Ready.
Let's look at Billy Rausch's phone bills. So, Billy Rausch, so he called Bob McDonald, the West Point professor who Maxwell initially thought him and his wife were not strange for immediately taking off work for a DUI walkaway and start interviewing neighbors around the crash site. So he called him around the time of the accident. That was a 34-minute phone call. Okay. And of course, Bob McDonald specifically said the conversation had nothing to do with Maura. Okay. So now, and then Bill tried to call Maura again. Then Bill called his father and talked to him for 10 minutes at 7:48.
Bill called Bill?
Yeah, Bill Jr. called Bill Sr. Once again, we're going to be taking a closer look at Bill Sr. at the end of this episode and why nobody's talking about Bill Sr. So, and I don't know why nobody's talking about the fact that he called Bob McDonald and then he called his own father. Is there another link we're not seeing through Bill Rausch's father? Does Bill Rausch Sr. have some kind of political clout? That, again, we don't know if they're the good guys or the bad guys. If they're the good guys, is there some kind of weird government situation where Maura's case interfered with another case, so they want to stand down the whole case on Maura and shut everything up because it interferes with a greater case? And is Bill Rausch using his father's connections, his own connections, Bob McDonald at West Point, are they using this to try to help find out what happened to Maura? Or if it's nefarious and they're setting her up or whatever, I don't know. It's weird, right? I would have to, if someone forced me to guess, I don't know if I would immediately guess that Bill Rausch is calling his own father to help set up the murder of his ex-girlfriend or girlfriend who wants to move on to, who wants to end the relationship. What do you guys think?
I don't know. From everything that we've seen or read about, it didn't seem like Bill had anything to do with it. I mean, the phone calls were weird with Mr. McDonald.
The frantic phone calls to all the people who knew Maura as well. So
the deleted message, or no, there was what was
the
it?
whimpering message, which he deleted off his voicemail that he said was Maura.
That was weird.
Well,
but just everything he's doing now.
Yeah, you think he's innocent?
I guess. I mean,
Maxwell,
Which he deleted, right?
yeah,
yeah, because he's, they had that thing to get signed to do more testing or I forget, investigate the case more on change.org. I think there was a signature.
The FBI petition, yes.
Yeah.
Petition,
so he put that out on Twitter.
Well, I mean, if he's just trying to look good, of course he would do that.
But then they'd find out that he did it. It's kind of weird.
If they find out that he did it?
Well, why would he do it if he has nothing to do with it?
No, but here's the thing. If he's a nefarious character, if he knows that the FBI will never take the case because of the connections, he doesn't have to ever worry about being found out. So he could play the good guy. He could go on Twitter, talk about it. The fact that he's never talked about it, I'm not saying that's true. I'm just trying to look at both sides of the equation here. Because I think if I had to slant, I might slant to him being innocent because it seems like all these frantic phone calls, he found out that something was wrong with Maura, or maybe she got involved in something, for example, CI program or something governmental. So he's calling his own dad to ask for advice. He's calling Bob McDonald, the West Point professor who might have connections we don't know about. So he's doing all this to try to save her. You want to sit down and do a podcast, Maxwell?
No, I'm good. I can't sit.
Okay, so yeah, or again, but here's the thing. I don't know if his father would help him cover this up. I don't know if Bob McDonald would help him cover it up. But what if Billy is guilty of doing something not necessarily killing her or whatever, but if he's guilty of trying to or whatever, trying to manipulate the situation, he wouldn't be telling his own father and Bob McDonald the truth. So if he was lying to them about something to try to get him to assist in doing whatever, again, not saying killing her or whatever, but possibly influencing her in some manner or trying to prevent her from running away, or even just keeping tabs on her, he could be telling lies to his father and Bob McDonald, so that could explain that. Because I have a hard time believing they would all just help him kill Maura. I don't know. That doesn't seem likely. What do you think?
How do you know?
I don't. I don't know the father or Bob McDonald. But Bob McDonald and his wife, now he's roping his wife into it, unless he's lying to his own wife. If they are part of some kind of weird, if they're part of some secret society cult, and then the wife doesn't know, Bob McDonald could lie to her. But I don't know. It seems like it's slightly more likely that they're the good guys, and they're trying to like figure out how to handle some kind of government situation that could impede finding out what happened to Maura. But I don't know. So he calls his father, 7:48, talks to him for 10 minutes. At 7:59, he calls his father again and speaks to him for another 11 minutes. So something was said. I mean, I guess it could have been a disconnection. He had to call him back. It is 2004. That's a possibility. Or something was said and then he had to call him back because he changed his mind about something. I don't know. Or he had further questions. So now at 9:14, he starts going really crazy with the cell phone. He tries to call Maura again on her cell phone. Now here's where we get into the Ohio strangest. 9:16 p.m., Bill calls a young woman from Ohio. We don't know. 9:17, Bill calls a different young woman from Ohio.
What?
9:20, Bill calls an unknown number in Ohio.
Did the young women have names or just?
Yeah,
young
but I'm not
women?
going to say their names.
Okay.
What difference does it make?
I'm just curious.
What difference does it make? Jane
Well,
Doe.
you can look into it. I don't
Jane
know.
Doe.
So
Well, if it could be
people
looked
looked
into, if
or-
it could be, I would have already looked into it and said it.
Okay.
Or it's not known. So what difference does it make?
I'm
This is a
curious-
podcast.
I'm curious
I'm-
if anyone looked
Well,
into
I'm giving you the information. James Renner
Okay.
did, and I'm giving the information.
it. Okay.
Whatever exists. So 9:22, Bill calls another young woman. We have her name. We're going to call her A. So he calls A at 9:22. At 9:22, he calls another number that is also used by A. So he called two different. This is the third woman he's calling in Ohio.
They don't pick up. He's trying all the numbers for
We don't know. At 9:23, he calls a relative of A.
all Ohio.
Yes. So
What day and time is this again?
the night of the accident. I
Okay.
just said the time, 9:23.
Yeah, but the day of the accident.
Yes.
Like I didn't know it was the day before.
You said day
or,
and
like,
time.
After. Day
I
and
just
time.
said 9:23.
Yeah,
day
but
of the
the day part. Is the
Okay,
one
yeah, I just
forgot.
answered that. You
Okay,
asked day and
so-
time. I just gave the time.
So the day of the accident.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So James Renner investigated this person. He actually received an email from A. The email stated, Maura was like family. James Renner then states, but she will say no more. Isn't that interesting? So, again, this is someone, so this A person, she knows Maura and speaks of Maura like family. We have no idea who she is. Maura is a private person. She has few good close friends. She and her family members and Billy. We do not know who this person is, but she regards Maura as family. And Bill called her at 3 different numbers to speak to her that day. that
And
night.
and you have her name. Or like
I don't know if
her
anybody
name.
has her last name, but
Okay.
but James
Hey.
Renner spoke to her.
Through
James-
email.
James Renner spoke to her, yes, through email. And then she wouldn't respond anymore other than that. So it's kind of weird. Why would she go out of her way to say that Maura was like family? Unless you think James Renner's lying right away again. But we've been around this carousel many times. Every time James Renner is questioned, he comes out vindicated because the person he spoke to said what he said, or there's a separate interview where the information they gave him is the same information they're giving somebody else. So as far as we know, Renner's been vindicated in terms of speaking who he said he spoke to and receiving information he said he received. Whether it's true or not, we don't know, but it seems like Renner is telling the truth from his perspective. So this A person, so it's very strange. Did she talk to Maura? Because if Maura's like a family member, Are there texts between them? Did she say she's coming out to Ohio? Why the interest in Ohio? We don't know. The other speculation is to whether A or some of these other women are Bill's ex-girlfriends or not. Because why was he so interested in talking to these specific people that night? He talks to Bob McDonald. He talks to his dad twice. And the Bob McDonald phone call's 34 minutes in length. Supposedly not about Maura. So, and then he called this specific individual, this A person, 3 times at 3 separate numbers. So not only does he know her main number, he knows a secondary number, and he knows the number of a relative. Interesting, isn't it? We don't really know if he spoke to her. The phone calls are short, but he was trying to speak to this person. And this is all 1 minute after the other. This is all rampant back-to-back minutes. So he's got all these numbers easily handy. He doesn't have to call someone else to get it. What's going on? Theories?
That's all he called that night. He didn't call anybody else.
Oh no, he called a bunch of other people too. But so this is the Ohio episode. We're discussing the Ohio factors here. But did law enforcement think she was going to this A person, and is that why did Billy hear about this from somebody else, or is Billy just calling random people he thinks that are super close to Maura that she might trust or confide in? Since we don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, it's all up in the air. This kind of frantic calls, like I don't know, like I've been leaning, because of this episode, I've been slightly leaning to Bill Rausch, or at least the Rausches, possibly not Bill, as the good guys. Has this swayed your opinion in any way, Maxwell?
But you're saying they are not the good guys?
They are, well, the family. I don't know what Bill's motivations are, but this kind of frantic behavior, if he's a genius evil mastermind, he'd make like 1 call or 2 calls. Yeah, take care of more. It seems like if he's trying to help her, that kind of explains the frantic nature.
And
I think.
This is after he knows that they found her car?
No.
Okay. So
this is that night.
Like
it has
during.
Yeah. But he's also calling her Kate's dorm. Like, the phone call activity is insane that day. That day, the phone call activity is insane. So he seems to know that she's either going to run or there's some kind of major problem. And he's trying to either find out what it is, prevent it, or if you believe that he's the perpetrator, he's finding out all this information and then he's trying to get somebody to do something about it, or he's trying to track her down himself. We don't know.
Because he's in, like, Oklahoma, right?
At that moment, yes.
Yeah.
Maxwell?
What
were you going to say? Started saying something.
I forgot what I was saying.
Maxwell Army. All right, so it would also be helpful if we knew exactly how often Maura went to Ohio and which people she associated with in Ohio. Because if this A person was a good friend of the Rausches and she was there during holidays or whatnot, if there was any kind of evidence, like, we really don't know who this person is, what her relationship to Maura is, other than her own statement that for whatever reason she felt the need to tell Renner that she was like family, unless it really wasn't her and it was someone else pretending to be her that contacted James Renner by email. We don't know.
It's probably more.
Maura why would she say that, though, if it was her? So if there's another group of friends that we don't know about, or 1 or 2 friends that we don't know about for whatever reason have been kept out of the public eye, they might have all the information we need. Instead of focusing on Kate Markopoulos and Sarah Alfieri and the Murray family and Bill Rausch, if there's other people, and maybe I guess law enforcement would have these people, especially if they think she went to Ohio, they might have some very solid leads they've never shared for whatever reasons.
I mean, it makes sense now that the police thought something about Ohio, I guess.
Yeah. We don't,
Like
we
the
really
phone
don't know.
calls. I mean,
So other people, we've discussed this as well, if the whole West Point sexual harassment scandal was coming out at that time, remember? So is this Billy trying to call former ex-girlfriends that he had, either not necessarily that went to West Point, but that he had while he was at West Point, to try to make sure they don't say anything bad about him or something? Because Renner contacted some, and some of them did not say nice things about Billy Rausch. They said he was abusive and stuff, whatever. Again, they could be lying because, Renner thinks they're telling the truth. I don't think Renner's lying about what he's saying. But if they, for whatever reason, didn't like Billy Rausch and they made that up to make him look bad, we don't know. We don't know. But what else could explain these phone calls? Because it's possible these phone calls are not related to Maura. How do we know? We don't know.
Yeah.
We just know that this is not typical activity for Billy Rausch. So we have to go. We're gonna go down the rumor mill a little bit with Mr. Clint Harding. So Clint is the guy who's very adamant that taking the words of emotional people are factual, and that proves that she committed suicide. So he believes, so through some hearsay that he heard, and I guess is taking as gospel truth on blind faith for some reason, that that Maura had run away before in previous months. So in the past couple months, Maura supposedly had ran away. So he heard this. So we don't know who heard what, where, from whom. So what Sarah said or Kate said, Billy Rausch, or whoever else, Clint Harding propagated this hearsay rumor, which may or may not be true. We don't know, but he believes it for some reason. I
mean, is there any way to figure it out? Like college, like was she out for like a month or?
I mean, there was the winter break, so we don't really. I mean, her movements were relatively accounted for. So the other thing is, did she run away for a day? In which case, or she was sick for 2 days. I mean, yeah, I don't think she ran away for a month because then it'd be obvious.
Yeah.
But if she ran away for like 1 day or 2 days, then you wouldn't.
That's not really running away. I mean,
but what if she emotionally had stated, "I need to get away from all these people," and nobody even knows where she went? Like if she went somewhere for a day or two, and nobody to this day knows where she went. And they were talking about that. We don't know, but this is all rumors. For some reason, Clint thinks that rumors are facts. Well, the other obvious, and then Clint, for some reason, also has trouble considering the possibility that whoever told him this thought it was the truth when it wasn't. So if someone thought Maura had run away, either again secondhand rumor, whatnot, so they're telling Clint what they believe to be the truth, but it's not actually the truth. So obviously, because people's words are not facts, despite how much some people think they are. But okay, so obviously it would be nice if the family or Billy Rausch clarified what people meant by, if it's even true, that she either ran away or attempted to run away. Well, here's the other thing too, like if she's running away from something in UMass and she doesn't want to go to Billy's because she thinks that people will look for her there because she's Billy's girlfriend. So what if she would go to one of Billy's friends who nobody would know at UMass, like this A person or someone else in Ohio? Because people would look for her at her boyfriend's place. They wouldn't look, they might not know about her boyfriend's friends, because we don't. I mean, even after this many years, we don't know who these other people are really. You think that's a possibility?
Maybe she was driving to Oklahoma to actually go to his army base.
Well, here's another thing. What if she actually did go to the Rausch family's home somehow if she got there? Because we don't know the exact... It's kind of rough because all of this is kind of hearsay and assumptions and taking things on faith, because if that ATM video has the wrong timestamp, because even the Pentagon has the wrong timestamp on 9/11, like it doesn't even have. So if the Pentagon doesn't have the correct timestamp, I mean, what was the estimate from the security camera installation specialists? Between 50 and 80% of security camera systems have incorrect timestamps. I mean, that was just thrown out there. That's not a definitive number. That was just an estimation by security camera installers. That quite a lot.
Did it have the right day, or is it just the weird timing?
We don't know. It says, it said February 9th.
Okay.
So, but we don't know if that's true or not. It could have been the day before. I mean, how do we know? Or it could have been that day, but a different time.
Or they could have just added the time afterwards.
Or, yeah, I mean, if you believe in the crazy conspiracy angle, then the whole video could be doctored, which is possible. We don't know. Because supposedly there's 3 angles, and all that was released was a couple frames from each angle. Why not release the whole thing from each angle? Kind of curious too. So we don't know. But if she did somehow make it to the Rausch home, and then this thing was a lot bigger than everybody thought, what if... And then so she had to leave, so she went to someone else's place in Ohio. And Billy either did or didn't know who that person was. But then why is Billy... It's kind of weird. Did they make a whole show of traveling to New Hampshire then? Because that's kind of weird, because if they already know where she was... Unless she disappeared from the friend's place, and Billy never knew for sure whether or not... Unless she got away that night and went to Billy's family's place afterwards while they were in New Hampshire. So if she really was in the Saturn at the Weathered Barn Corner in North Haverhill... If she really was there and she got away somehow, and then she did make it to the family home while everybody else was, because how much of a days of travel is that? A couple days. They're still in New Hampshire. She could have made it there. By the time they got back, she was gone, and she went to. We don't know. Maxwell, thoughts?
No thoughts.
Maxwell Army. That should be your mug, Maxwell. No thoughts. Okay, So let's see what else we got here. So in Fred Murray's lawsuit against the state of New Hampshire for information about Maura Murray's disappearance and all the sealed records, because originally they said there were no sealed files, and then it came out that there's thousands of pages and it's the largest missing persons file in New Hampshire state history. So that's kind of curious. No file at all, nothing unsealed, and biggest file ever.
So none of that information has ever been made
Oh,
public?
some of it has. A lot of it has, just not all of it.
Like the footage, the ATM footage, that's one thing, right?
Yeah, well, also just documents. Supposedly they tapped people's phones. They did lie detector tests. I mean, there was a lot of evidence logged. It's supposedly their largest missing persons case file in New Hampshire state history. So,
Damn.
Grafton County medical examiner was required to examine remains in Ohio. So they really think she's in Ohio, or was in Ohio at one point, because this is from human remains found in Ohio were connected to the Maura Murray case, and they were in the transcript from the court hearing when Fred Murray was suing the state for information. So this was revealed in court. And they did release certain files. They just didn't release
So they
all of
had
them.
a body. They tested it.
So here's the thing. So there were actually 16 bodies found that have specifically been ruled out as Maura Murray, just all over.
Okay.
Some were in Ohio. So, yeah. So, but the point is that, so Grafton County, North Haverhill, this New Hampshire area, they're interested in remains in Ohio connected to Maura Murray's case. What does that tell you? The Ohio thing was not some side rumor, so they seem to be taking it very seriously, which means they had some kind of information to take seriously. It wasn't just someone saying, I think she went to Ohio. They must have had a text message or something, right? Or someone said something, someone specific, not a rumor as something definitive, like there was a definitive plan. And the whole New Hampshire thing might have just been a diversion, or the plan to go to Ohio kind of developed as a problem occurred in New Hampshire. We don't know. Here's what's even crazier, though. Let's say there is some kind of CI or drug situation that she needs to escape from, and let's say Billy is abusive. But if the CI situation is deadly, she'd still rather go to her semi-abusive boyfriend, or just rough boyfriend if he's not abusive, or just very nice boyfriend who she no longer wants to be involved with. She'd still rather go there than deal with a potentially deadly or really weird UMass CI situation. Because we keep going back to that party, or she's going to the dorm. She'd rather drive to her father's hotel than stay in her own dorm. That's not someone who feels safe, is it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, she has the accident allegedly en route to the motel. Maybe she was going somewhere else. Either way, if everything's hunky-dory and safe, she'd go to sleep in her dorm, right? Like, why would she go out in the middle of the night and then try to get to her dad's? Very, very curious. So, yeah, so once again, so they were very interested in remains in Ohio, which, going back to John Smith's report on a possible body, nobody's interested in ruling out a body somewhere near the crash site. So they want to know if it's her in Ohio, but they don't want to know if it's her in Haverhill. It's kind of weird. So here's the other thing to consider. If law enforcement knows a lot more than they're saying, which is they probably do, regardless of what it is, what if they knew that Maura wasn't in the Saturn? Because Cecil Smith had stated that originally he thought it was Fred Murray. I don't know how that explains the first Bolo report with her exact height and description, from as if it was from her license that had been run from an earlier stop.
That he was the one driving it?
Cecil Smith said that he originally thought that it was Fred Murray driving because he ran the plate and it's registered to Fred Murray.
Gotcha.
None of their actions back that up, but that's just what he said at one point, that he thought it was Fred Murray driving
He's
the vehicle.
never said that it was him, right? Like,
That it was Fred Murray?
No, Fred Murray himself never said
Oh, no.
that.
Well, it wasn't because
Yeah.
he was really far away, yeah.
Just because this whole, like, Ohio thing, I never heard this before, so...
But what if law enforcement, what if they knew it wasn't her in the Saturn?
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking for in Ohio because if they knew that she wasn't driving the Saturn and someone else took it up there for whatever reason, again, if we're going back to the Patrick Vassy hit and run, if she was involved in the hit and run and that's why she wants to go to Ohio or get out of the area, because that Monday is when they announced to everybody that Patrick Vassy was in a coma and might not make it. Another coincidence that happened that Monday. A lot of coincidences in this case. So if she's trying to get away, is she going to go to Ohio and then they know that that she's not driving the Saturn up, because if the Saturn hit Patrice Vassie, even if she wasn't driving it, so if one of her friends borrowed it, whatever, but it would look bad on her. And what if it wasn't one of her real friends, so maybe they threatened her with something, possibly relating to some drug issue to keep quiet, otherwise they're going to report that it was her vehicle and they're going to find out, and then she would be blamed for it, so then she kind of panics. We don't know. But if law enforcement thought that was happening, and for whatever reason, maybe they have toll booth footage, like she had that fast pass thing or whatever. I mean, it's 2004. This isn't 94. Like, there might be, police might somehow know that she was not driving the Saturn up. So if they know that, and they think that she separately was heading to Ohio, nothing to do with the Saturn, if someone else was getting rid of the Saturn for her, could that explain it, Maxwell? Episode 26, man. Episode 26. I know you got all your facts straight now.
Yeah, that's like messed up, man, because like they have the picture of her car, the license plate, going through the fast pass or whatever they call it.
If they do,
yeah, they should have a picture every time you go through to make sure that you're actually, paying.
Yeah,
or
in
whatever.
2004, I don't know if they were everywhere though.
They had to though because of giving out tickets. Like if you run.
Yeah, that's now though, because before, if it malfunctioned, you just call them or send in a letter saying that there was a malfunction. So,
I guess what I'm talking about is like a person that doesn't have the fast thing and they just run through.
But if there's if they don't,
like it should take a picture every time.
I see what you're saying.
Right? I mean,
I'm not. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it was in 2004 in that area.
It's interesting that you said that. They could know that, but it's annoying as hell that if they do know that, we don't know that.
But that's maybe. Yeah, but that's very specific. There could be a very good reason why law enforcement, if they know that it wasn't her, why they haven't revealed that. There could be a very, very good reason for that. And
you have an idea on why?
Because obviously, maybe it's not true. We don't know what happened. There's definitely crossover with all of these agencies, and there has to be a good reason for it. That reason obviously does not have to be some kind of multi-state conspiracy of law enforcement against Maura Murray. Although if she was killed as a result of some kind of bad CI situation or whatever, something to do with another case that's bigger and they don't want to jeopardize the bigger case, that could be it. But there's also other possible explanations. So, yeah, so if they know that it's not her in the vehicle, the Ohio situation makes more sense because if it's somebody else in the vehicle and they know that for sure, where are they going to look for her? And especially there's remains found in Ohio, they want to rule those out because they really thought she went there. So for one reason or another, they seem to have thought that she went there.
It's so easy to know where that car was traveling then, because I didn't know it had that
The Saturn?
fast pass thing.
Oh, well, we don't know if that fast pass was being utilized at the moment. It was found in the vehicle. They have, again, this is probably part of the case file. They should know which toll she went through, unless, for whatever reason, if the fast pass wasn't paid and she was using change.
And if she avoided toll.
Right.
Oh, no, she didn't. Right? She was definitely, that
We don't
car
know.
was definitely on one of those main highways.
We don't know that. We do not know that. So, because again, there's an hour. The timeline is a bit bizarre. It's just weird how the official story is dependent on the words of people. A dorm mate saw her leave between 4 and 4:30. That's not concrete evidence. And we still don't have the liquor store footage. That's never been released. Why?
And how do we know about that, though?
There's a receipt. Well, there's a receipt in the car from the store, timestamped, and also law enforcement has issued statements in multiple articles refer to these statements. They have the video, and Maura was alone in the video. That was the words of law enforcement on the report. So they reported that they have the video, and she was alone in the video. So that's how we know about that. But they don't release it. What does that mean? What if it wasn't her, or it was and she was with somebody? I don't know. They might have very good reasons for not releasing any of this information. So,
yeah, because like the ATM footage is out, right? But it doesn't really. It just proves she was at the ATM.
yeah.
Okay.
So obviously we know very little about Billy's movements after he arrived in New Hampshire because Bob McDonald is his only alibi. So whatever those two were doing, we don't know. And then he was, of course, traveling to Maine or whatnot. Some people even you could throw out there a crazy theory that as soon as he got to New Hampshire, he left shortly after, and McDonald was using his phone to make calls while traveling to Maine or Vermont and all those areas. We don't know. I don't know. So, okay, let's go to Billy and his father. So there's been a lot of online chatter of a whole slew of aspects regarding Ohio and Bill Sr. So Billy Jr., so he obviously has political connections. He worked on the Obama political campaign, as well as holding several political military positions. I wonder if he had anything to do with Romney. Like Alden Olson insinuating that one of Romney's son was involved with some bizarre party. But some online sleuths repeatedly have asked, who is Billy Rausch's father and what is he involved with? And is there a link to something through Billy's father? So it's very difficult to find information on Bill Sr., but I did find a few articles that stated he did fly into New Hampshire with Sharon. So Billy had both of his parents there. For whatever reason, nobody discusses this. For whatever reason, he's never really done any interviews either. Sharon Rausch is front and center.
Like right after the...
Yeah, so I'm going to read an article from February 13th. It was either 13th or the 14th. Fitchburg Sentinel and Enterprise, New Hampshire Union Leader, Lowell Sun, Nashua Telegraph, and the Boston Globe. Murray's family, along with her boyfriend, Army Lieutenant Bill Rausch, and his family have flown into the state to help. The family has been passing out flyers with her picture on both sides of the border, hoping someone might have seen her. Sharon Rausch, the boyfriend's mother, who flew in with her husband, Bill, from Marengo, Ohio, to help, said she has been told Murray had made arrangements to be away from work for a week. She worked at an art gallery while going to nursing school at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, where she is a junior, Rausch said. She said Murray crashed her car 2 days after wrecking her father's car in a crash. She's extremely responsible, an extremely frugal girl. I think she wanted to get away and get her head on straight, Rausch said. We have no reason to believe she was running away. She's a jewel of a girl, she said. She said Murray left an email message with her son on Monday afternoon that said she wanted to talk to him. Murray and her son met at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where both were students, Rausch said. She left after 1.5 years. Rausch said Murray is an outstanding athlete who ran in high school and college. All right, another article, Boston Globe, February 15th, 2004. The day after the accident, well, also keep in mind, these are news reports within a week or 2 or 3 after the disappearance. So very close to the disappearance. So we might have some slightly different information than we have now after things have been transformed and broken telephone has been played. The day after the accident, she called her boyfriend, Army Lieutenant Bill Rausch, who is stationed in Oklahoma, in tears. A day later on Monday, she got into her Saturn and headed north. Rausch, who got a leave of absence from the Army, arrived in New Hampshire on Thursday. I just had another thought. If he's talking to his father and Bob McDonald the night of the accident, if they can pull some strings, they might have gotten him that leave of absence, because she's not his girlfriend. I mean, she's not his wife. She's just his girlfriend. If she walks away from a drunken accident, is that enough to justify an emergency leave of absence from the military? Usually it has to be a spouse.
How long after that happened, they found out that
Within
he
like
was
a
able
day.
to fly? He was
Yeah.
able to fly out like the day after? Like
Or 1 or
into
2
New
days. He
Hampshire?
fly out Wednesday. He might have flown out Wednesday.
Okay.
So like 2 days-ish. So, which is pretty quick. And usually, and it takes whatever, 24, it might take 24 hours to even get that set up. What if he called his dad or Bob McDonald and they made some phone calls on his behalf because he knew something was going down? I don't know. The whole thing's kind of strange. So he arrived in New Hampshire on Thursday. Rausch arrived on Thursday. So he got his leave of absence Tuesday or Wednesday, probably Wednesday, to arrive on Thursday. Joined by his parents, who drove from Ohio, and by Murray's father and some of her siblings, Rausch has spent the past few days driving across both New Hampshire and Vermont, stopping at local gas stations, bus stations, and police headquarters, asking whether anyone has seen Murray. Oh, another point. The car did have a close to full gas tank, so it filled up somewhere. If that somewhere gas station has a video, that's another way the police might know that it's not her if it wasn't her.
So they have 3 points of reference, possibly.
They
4.
might. Yeah, we don't know.
Or
They
even
might.
more, too.
They might. So they might know that it wasn't her. So they stopping at local gas stations, bus stations, and police headquarters asking whether anyone has seen Murray. Yesterday morning, Rausch and his father were told that Murray might have been at McDonald's in not Bob McDonald's, Ronald McDonald's restaurant in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. They drove there, but no one had seen her.
Wait. How did they get that info?
They were just told that. Somebody called it in, I guess, to their tip line.
Okay.
May or may not have been legitimate. We covered that on Sightings of Maura on our episode. Obviously, we're hoping for the best. If I just got some news, although I guess no news is good news, Rausch said. Rausch said Murray fled with a backpack, but left many of the other items she'd packed, including the stuffed monkey he gave her and her favorite book, Without Peril. Remember, we discussed the book. Behind in her car. A witness told local police Murray appeared to have been intoxicated at the time of the crash, and Rausch said that there was an open bottle of alcohol in the car. However, he said he'd never known Murray to drink and drive and guessed she might have fled out of fear she'd broken the law. Very interesting. So, back to Sharon Rausch. Sharon did a number of interviews, which it would have been interesting if her husband had also done some interviews, which supposedly he didn't. Also strange how no one has ever asked what Maura thought of Bill's father or any of Maura's family members. No one ever mentions him, whereas Sharon has been scrutinized because she was speaking for Billy a lot of the time, but the father, no. Another article, New Hampshire Union Leader, February 20th, 2004. She loved her family and friends, and there is no way she would put the two most important people in her life, her father and my son, through this nightmare, said Sharon Rausch, the mother of Murray's boyfriend, Army Lieutenant Bill Rausch. Her son must report back for duty in Oklahoma tomorrow, she said. So now we have a timeline because this was highly disputed when he went back. So he basically went back the 20th or the 21st. He has to report back on the 21st.
So he was there just for a few days?
For a few weeks. Well, February 9th, so if he arrived on Thursday.
Wait, that was written
9th was Monday. This article is from February 20th. She's
okay,
saying he has
gotcha.
to be in Oklahoma tomorrow. Well, also, if that happened a day or two
When it was
before, we
written,
don't
yeah.
know when she gave that interview. But so he was there from roughly the 9th to the 20th, 21st, something like that. Other family members who have also put their lives on hold must also return to their homes. But she said that does not mean they are giving up trying to find her. There are countless friends clamoring to help, Rausch said. After more than a week of heartbreaking days, Rausch said the family can only conclude that Murray is unable to contact them. It's been a very long 10 days and we are very worried, she said. We are all convinced in our hearts that she is somewhere and someone is preventing her from contacting us. Rausch and her husband must return to their Ohio home on Monday. Doesn't say why. But she said their efforts would continue to find Murray. Maura, we love you, she said. We are never going to give up hope, and don't you give up hope. We'll bring you home. Rausch said Murray was in contact with her son during the day on Monday, leaving him a telephone message that said, I love you, call me, she said. That's interesting, too, because if there's a copy of that message, it would clarify some relationship issues. Because it seemed Maura was avoiding his calls to the point where he was calling Kate Markopoulos' dorm, possibly when Maura was there, with all that strange phone activity that we discussed before. So if they did release that message that if that was Monday, the day that she went, unless she's trying to not tip him off, because if she's running away with another guy and she doesn't want to, I mean, I don't know. A lot of crazy theories out there. So another thing I'm going to go over with Cecil Smith. This is from James Renner's book. Okay, so he wants to interview Cecil Smith and Jeff Williams. Do you know who these people are, Maxwell?
Yes.
You do? Okay, who's Williams?
One of the cops.
He's allegedly the chief that drove around drunk. Rumor has it.
Oh, yeah.
So on the way to Williams' house, I dropped by Cecil Smith's place. Smith was the first cop on the scene the night of Maura's accident. I found him in his front yard, tinkering with a mound of dirt beneath a radar dish. Smith had figured out how to build a green energy generator to warm the water in his house using the captured radiant heat from the rotting wood.
What?
That's kind of interesting. Keep in mind, he's a former military intelligence officer, and supposedly it took him 17 minutes to get to the scene because he got lost, even though his father lives nearby. This is all the same Cecil Smith.
Wait, what is he making?
He
wood?
made some kind of generator,
Out
a
of
green
piece of
energy
wood?
generator to warm the water in his house using the captured radiant heat from rotting wood. He was a friendly fellow, anxious to bend my car about the benefits of compost power. Eventually, we got around to talking about the accident. I don't drink, he said, but I know what alcohol smells like, and the car smelled like alcohol. I could see it spilled all over the ceiling. Smith had his own theory about what brought Maura up to New Hampshire. It was her scumbag boyfriend that made her want to drive up here, he said. He came out in the news and was all, we loved her. Well, expletive you. He was cheating on her. If it was a suicide, it was because of what he was doing to her. But if it was a suicide, where's the body? Why drive all the way up here just to kill yourself? Then he said with a weird smile, you should really talk to Chief Williams. Sounds like a horror movie. I found Jeffrey Williams' house on Bradley Hill Road, a half-mile up the mountain from where Maura got into her wreck. In front of his mansion is a big barn, and on top of the barn is a golden calf weather vane. Something about the look of the place raised my hackles. I parked my car, walked to the front door, and knocked. Williams was already there and opened the door immediately. He's a large man with a long scar eating up his right cheek. What? I'm a journalist working on... Williams slammed the door in my face. So he didn't even wait to hear that it was about Maura Murray. So what do we think about the Ohio situation? Also, Cecil Smith is saying it's not a suicide, whereas a lot of Haverhill was pushing, the PD was pushing the suicide angle, that she came up there to harm herself. So there seems to be some dissent among the officers as well. It's kind of weird.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to know what to think. If you just release more info, it'd be a little easier.
But what do we think of the Ohio situation? It seems like it hasn't been talked about. I mean, the Oxygen show didn't really... I mean, they could
Did they mention it at all?
I don't know if there might have been one line, but they didn't. They definitely didn't. They probably didn't mention it. I don't know.
Because like
they might have mentioned it, but
kind of not really that important. But
it could be.
They live there.
It could be.
Like the family lives there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like okay, yeah. One part of the family is from there at least. The Londonderry area.
We don't know who this person is who Bill Rausch called, who said Maura was like family, because that seems kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Maxwell?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know what to think of Ohio.
Good thing you're doing a podcast on the Maura
anything.
Murray case. It could be anything. That's another slogan for the Maxwell Murray. Very specific, concise, and astute points by Maxwell Powers. Johnny, any closing thoughts on Ohio?
Isn't it like a boring state? I don't know.
I don't know. I think James Renner lives in Ohio. You're insulting James Renner's state?
Oh my god. That's where Maura Murray is.
She's in Ohio?
Maybe.
Living a happy life?
In a boring state. No, I don't know. It's interesting. I just don't like. If I want to talk about something, I have all the information. Like with
That's
Stephen
all we
Avery,
have
I know.
on
Like
Ohio.
with Stephen Avery, you have so much to put together. With this, it's like okay, she just disappeared.
Well, that's why it's one of the most mysterious missing
I
persons
know.
cases ever, because there's all this weird law enforcement obfuscation.
Because like if there was some kind of trial, at least more documents would be released. And
Well,
there's more
supposedly there
info.
was a grand jury. There was at least one grand jury, and we will be discussing that, but obviously confidential.
So there's no like Freedom of Information Acts. that you
There
could
was.
do,
That's
like-
what Aaron
What
Larkin
does it
got.
mean, what
as
does it
far
mean
as-
by grand jury?
You know what a grand jury is?
I know what a jury is, but I don't know what a grand jury is.
A grand jury is basically a court investigation where prosecution is deciding whether there's enough evidence to press charges or even have a trial against a suspect. We will be doing an episode on the grand jury that was convened. Some people think that the reason why Kate Markopoulos and Sarah Alfieri aren't talking
So
is
it's like a
because
mock
of a grand
jury,
jury.
like a pre-jury.
Yeah, I
Um,
went on it once actually.
Really?
On a grand jury?
Yeah.
What was your
It
experience?
Sucked.
What was your
18
experience?
weeks.
Yep.
Or something crazy. Like every week for 18 weeks.
But what did you do? What did you go
So
over?
hold on. The official definition of a grand jury is a jury typically of 23 people selected to examine the validity of an accusation before trial,
Got it.
to investigate potential criminal conduct and determine whether criminal charges should be brought.
So it's mostly cops coming in.
And a grand
Really?
jury may subpoena physical evidence.
wait. So you ask questions to the cops, or like, or you can't do anything. You just
You don't
just
ask-
Observe.
Yeah, the basically the prosecutors or whatever ask the witness or whatever questions. And then the grand jury kind of discusses like, oh yeah, like we think this is enough information to like,
Whether there's enough evidence. Or
yeah,
not.
enough evidence.
It
to
would
go
be
ahead.
now. You're
Wait,
bound by confidentiality, right? You cannot discuss.
Yeah, you can't talk about anything
Yeah.
outside of that.
So we
Yeah.
would never be able to even know what.
I mean, I guess you could just say it, but I don't even remember anything. That
No, but
because like,
how long
with
ago
those
was yours?
people-
How long ago was yours?
This is probably 8 years ago. I don't know.
Okay, so a while ago. So the Maura Murray one would be quite some time ago. But
Yeah. Because here's the thing. So I don't know how that one worked, but basically with when I did it, it was like the whole day. So 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning till 5.
how many days?
8. I'm pretty sure it was 18 weeks. every week.
Wait, 18 weeks?
Yeah, once a week for 18 weeks.
Oh,
So
okay.
18 times.
That's a lot of weeks.
Yeah, and you
That's
get
crazy.
paid.
That's all
Months,
day.
yeah.
You get paid, obviously, a good amount of money.
Now, what was this
$7.
specifically? What was this? What was this specific grand jury for? Like,
So
what was
here's the thing.
guy-
So, like I said, we're going there for like 8 hours, right? It's a full work day. You have to miss work, go there, and you're listening to literally like 20 different cases.
Oh, it's not
It's
for one
boring
case.
as hell. So
oh, it's
I don't
not for
know-
one case.
No, I
Okay.
wonder with that if that was mixed in with a bunch
Oh,
of other
okay, I
things,
see,
or if
I
it was
see.
just that one.
Oh, that is
thing.
pretty interesting. Yeah, we will examine all those. There is information on the grand jury, not a whole ton, but we will be doing an episode on the grand jury and going over all of that, as well as the transcript from Fred Murray's case. But regarding what you said of the Freedom of Information Act, that's how Aaron Larkin actually got some information on the dispatch logs. And the
Okay.
911 calls, the Faith Westman call, the Butch. Now, they don't give us a whole lot. There seem to have been other calls, and there's deleted, like not redacted. There's just missing pieces, which is very strange.
Redacted meaning when they were
Redacted means
received that way. or-
Redacted means you'd have the full report with some of it blacked out.
No, but
what we
who-
got, it
who-
seems like there's missing. It's not redacted. It seems like there's missing information because Faith Westman said she was on the call for a long time, whereas it doesn't look like it. So there's a lot of inconsistencies with that as well. But so that's our Ohio episode. We hope you enjoyed another edition of the Mindshock Podcast True Crime. And if you like our podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you like the video, hit like. Any questions, comments, suggestions, or any discussion you'd like to have on any aspect of the case or other cases, feel free to leave it in the comments. Feel free to share the video across social media platforms. Make sure you like our Facebook page, and you can check us out on Twitter, Patreon, Reddit as well. This is Bruce McGuire signing off.
And Maxwell Powers.
and Johnny Mills.
See you guys next time.